Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to look at change of subject formula. So, in today's class, we're going to look at what subject means, and then when we talk about change of subject. Now, subject means the aid of a particular thing. If you're looking at the subject of a discussion, that's what the discussion is centered on. So today we are looking at change of subject formula. Now we have s equal to k square root of m squared plus n squared, and we are making m the subject of formula. So how do we do that? So the whole thing is for us to make m to stand alone, as simple as that. Make n the king of the equation. So now here is our m is in prison, kind of. So now what we're going to do, the first thing you're going to do is to try to remove this square root sign. Now how do you do that? You can remove the square root sign by squaring both sides. Very good. So if you square both sides, you're going to have that s squared is equal to k square root of m squared plus n squared, and then we do what? Square. So that will give us what? That our s squared equal to, we have k squared, and then, now don't forget that whenever you square a square root like this square is going to cancel this. So we are left with what? M squared plus n squared. Very correct. So if we do that, we're going to have that s squared equal to k squared, and then into what? M squared plus n squared. Now we have eliminated our square root sign. So how we do that? We have that s squared equal to what? We open the bracket here. We have that k squared m squared plus k squared n squared. That's very good. So now don't forget, we are making what? We are making our m the subject of formula. So now if you look at this equation, the only thing that is not making m to stand alone is k squared, n squared, and this k squared here. So what do? We subtract this k squared from both sides. That will give us what? S squared minus k squared n squared equal to what? K squared m squared plus k squared n squared minus k squared n squared. So now don't forget that this since it's the same variable, k squared n squared, this is like saying a minus a give us what? 0, or like saying 2 minus 2 give us what? 0. So k squared n squared minus k squared n squared will give us what? 0. So we have left, what we have left is k s squared minus k squared n squared will give us what? K squared m squared. Now this is gone. Now if you look at that, this m squared is not still free. That means we still have k squared here. So because we are making m squared the subject, what we have to do is to divide both sides by, you're correct, we divide both sides by k squared. So if we divide both sides of this equation by k squared, we find that k will cancel this, and we are left with that what? That s squared minus k squared n squared over k squared will give us what? M squared. Now m is not still free. We are not looking for m squared. What we are making the subject of formula is m. So to remove our, it's like if you want to remove a square root, for example, if you want to remove a square from a number, what, like for example, this example, m squared is equal to 5. To remove this square, what do? You find the square root of both sides. So that this square will cancel this, and then you add that m is equal to the square root of 5. So it's the same thing. So removing this, we are going to have that to remove our square root, to remove our square, we are going to do what? Find the square root of this. So if we find the square root of both sides of the equation, we are going to have that what? That s squared minus k squared n squared, that's the square root, over k squared will give us what? Square root of m. Now, if it's just like saying if you are equal to your brother, that means your brother is equal to you. That means we can get our final answer that this implies if this is equal to m, then we can say that m is equal to the square root of what? Of s squared minus k squared n squared over k squared. Do you understand that? That's very good. That's very simple. Just don't forget what we have to do. Do what? You remove the square root first, and then you do what? To remove the square root to find the square. To remove a multiplication, if two numbers are multiplied together, to separate it, what do? You find the division. That is, divide both sides by a particular variable. Do you understand that? So we have a final answer as m equal to what? S squared minus k squared n squared divided by k squared. That's very correct. So if you understand this, let's go over to the next question. Let's go back to the next question. The next question says that p over d minus x is equal to d over 3p minus 2x. So the first thing we do is to multiply through by the LCM. Now the LCM of this equation is d minus x and then 3p minus 2x. So if you multiply the equations to clear the bracket, if you multiply the equations or multiply both the right hand side and the left hand side by the LCM, we're going to have that d minus x into 3p minus 2x, and then multiply by p over d minus x is equal to what? D minus x into 3p minus 2x multiplied by d over 3p minus 2x. Now this cancel this, and then we have this cancelling this. So we are left with what? P into what? 3p minus 2x equal to what? D into what? D minus x. So if you now open the bracket, we are going to have that what? 3p squared minus 2px equal to what? D squared minus dx. Now to do this, we are making, don't forget what we are making the subject. We are making x the subject of formula. So we are making x the subject formula. We make that is, we take all the things that are not having x in them, those ones that are not having x in them to one side, and the one that are having x in them to the other side. So if you take this one to this other side, we have this will change to plus. So we have dx minus 2px equal to d squared. Take this one down here, that change to minus 3p squared. So we can now factorize this. This has x in it, this has x in it. So x out, and we have d minus 2p equal to what? D squared minus 3p squared. Now if you do that, still x is not standing alone. What you have to do is because this is multiplication, to remove this we do what? Divide both sides by d minus 2p. Divide this by d minus 2p. So this cancels. We are left with what? X equal to what? D squared minus 3p squared over d minus 2p. That was simple, right? That's very, very correct. So what you just have to do, follow the steps. So now x is now standing as the king of the equation. So you have d squared minus 3p squared over d minus 2p, serving it. Good. So now let's go over to the next and last question for today. The next and the last question for today. Don't forget that what you're trying to do in changing of subject formula, you are trying as much as possible to make one variable to stand alone, to be written in terms of the other two variables. So let's look at the last question for today. We have that f is equal to 1 over 2 pi the square root of LC. Now we are making L the subject here. Now to do that, the first have to remove the square root, and when you are removing square root, what do? We square both sides. So that become f squared equal to 1 over 2 pi square root of LC, everything squared. That will give us what? That is going to give us that f squared equal to what? 1 square over 2 pi all square root of LC, everything squared. So that will give us what? F squared equal to what? 1 over 4 pi square, and then multiply by LC. Now we have removed our square root there. We have removed our square root sign there. What we are going to have now, that we do what? That will give us that what? That f square cross multiply. We can cross multiply here. F square 4 pi square LC equal to what? 1. So that we have that what? That LC is divide both sides by everything that doesn't begin to stand alone equal to what? 1 over f square 4 pi square. And then we have what? This we divide both sides by what? Our c. That means that L is equal to what? If we divide this as a 1 over f square 4 pi square divided by c. And we are going to have that what? L equal to what? 1 over f square 4 pi square times 1 over c. That will give us that L. This implies that L equal to what? 1 over f square 4 pi square c. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you you have a very nice holiday. Thanks and God bless.